Imagine this. It's a quiet Saturday afternoon. The kind where the sun feels warm but not oppressive, where the gentle hum of sprinklers and distant lawnmowers fills the air. Kids are laughing, splashing in the pool you've spent years lovingly maintaining. The water crystal clear, the perfect refuge from the heat. Your backyard feels like a private paradise, a reward for all the hard work. Then, out of nowhere, everything changes. A notice. A letter slipped under your door, crisp and official looking, with the HOA's emblem stamped at the top. Your heart skips a beat as you read the headline. Fine notice. Unauthorized use of pool. Wait, what? Unauthorized use of your own pool? You read it again. Yes, the HOA is fining you for simply using the pool that belongs to your property. At first, I thought it was some kind of mistake, maybe a mix-up with another neighbor. So I called the HOA office, expecting a quick explanation and apology. No such luck. Instead, I got a robotic response about community safety regulations and compliance issues that made no sense. Rules I had never seen before. Regulations that weren't in the original homeowner's agreement. And then came the name I wish I could forget. Karen. The self-appointed HOA enforcer. The neighborhood's unofficial rulebook with legs and a clipboard. The woman who seemed to take perverse pleasure in finding the tiniest infraction and turning it into a battle. But I wasn't ready to back down. If you're wondering how a simple pool could ignite a full-blown war, keep watching, because the story only gets crazier from here. I moved into this neighborhood about 2 years ago. On paper, it was idyllic. Quiet streets, friendly neighbors, and rules that promised harmony. The kind of place where families felt safe letting their kids play outside, and where everyone's lawn was a testament to suburban pride. But underneath that polished surface, the HOA ruled with an iron fist. The rules were endless. Grass had to be cut to exactly 2.5 inches, no more, no less. Mailboxes had to be painted a specific shade of beige. Trash bins could only be put out on designated days. At first, I thought it was all a bit much, but I wanted to fit in, so I complied. Karen, however, was a whole different story. She wasn't just enforcing rules, she was inventing new ones, new restrictions, new fines, new ways to make life difficult for anyone who didn't toe the line exactly. I was blissfully unaware of her until that morning when I found the fine for unauthorized pool usage. It felt like a slap in the face. Confused, I emailed Karen. I kept my tone polite, professional. After all, I was trying to understand, not start a fight. Her reply was cold and clipped. Your use of the pool violates Section 7.4b of the HOA bylaws regarding community safety standards. Continued violations will result in further penalties. I skimmed through the bylaws. Section 7.4b. It talked vaguely about community common areas and approved uses, but there was no mention of restricting personal backyard pools. I wrote back, asking her to clarify which specific rule I had broken. The answer: no reply. That was my first real warning. Soon after, strange things began happening. Signs appeared around my pool, bright yellow notices about pool safety compliance plastered on my fence. I never requested any inspection, never consented to these notices. Then came surprise visits from HOA inspectors. They'd show up unannounced, walking around my property with clipboards, taking pictures and scribbling notes. Neighbors, once friendly, started giving me wary looks, some even crossing the street when they saw me approach. Whispers circulated that I was the troublemaker, or the one Karen's after. One afternoon, I caught Karen herself standing at the edge of my yard, clipboard in hand, watching me swim. Our eyes met. Her stare was sharp, accusing, as if I was guilty of a crime. She didn't say a word, but that moment sealed it. This was no longer just about rules. This was personal. The fines kept coming, each one more outrageous than the last. First, $250. Then, $500. Then, $750. One letter even accused me of disturbance of community peace, citing the laughter of children playing in the pool as evidence. I was baffled. Was this real life, or some twisted joke? But the intimidation didn't stop there. One evening, I found an anonymous note slipped under my door. Comply or face legal consequences. That same week, My pool filter was sabotaged, turned off and clogged with debris. Someone had clearly tampered with it. It felt petty and childish, but it stung. This was my home, my sanctuary. And yet, I was being forced into submission. The neighbors' attitudes shifted too. Polite nods turned into cold shoulders. I felt isolated, boxed in by fear and rules. But I wasn't ready to give up. One small victory kept me going. A neighbor, quietly sympathetic, handed me a copy of the HOA rulebook. I pored over it and found something surprising. Nowhere did it say I could be fined for using my own pool. Another unexpected win came when Karen accidentally sent me a draft email intended for the HOA board. In it, she admitted that I was being targeted personally. That was a crack in the armor. There was even a strange moment of humor amid the chaos. A pool closed sign nailed to my fence, complete with a grumpy cartoon version of Karen glaring down at me. It was petty, ridiculous, but also oddly satisfying. Each of these moments built the tension, the drama. But most importantly, they set the stage for my plan. After weeks of harassment and escalating madness, I realized something important. I couldn't fight Karen with anger or shouting. That only played into her hands. I needed strategy. I began digging, collecting every document I could find, every email, every fine notice. I cross-referenced HOA bylaws with state laws on homeowner rights. I read forums, talked to legal experts, and quietly rallied neighbors who were tired of Karen's heavy-handed tactics. Then came the bold move. I installed a heavy-duty lock on my pool gate. Not to keep my family out, but to keep unauthorized inspections and trespassers at bay. Alongside the lock, I put up a clear sign. Private property, pool access restricted. I documented everything. Every interaction. Every letter. Every attempt to sabotage or intimidate. I sent it all to the HOA board with a detailed letter demanding accountability. Slowly, the cracks started to show. More neighbors spoke up, sharing their own stories of Karen's overreach. The local news caught wind of the story after I reached out to them. Suddenly, my battle felt less lonely and more like a David versus Goliath fight. For the first time, I felt calm, confident, ready. Karen's reign was no longer absolute. Finally, the HOA board called a meeting. The room was packed. Neighbors filled every seat, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Karen tried to defend herself, her voice shaky but defiant. She insisted she was protecting the community. I calmly presented my evidence. Emails, fines without legal basis, sabotage attempts, and that damning draft email. One by one, neighbors spoke, revealing how Karen's personal vendetta had affected them all. When the votes were counted, it was unanimous. Karen's special enforcement privileges were revoked. In that moment, figuratively slow motion, the lock on my pool gate became more than just hardware. It was a symbol of justice, resilience, and fairness restored. As we left the meeting, a neighbor whispered to me, "You locked more than the gate, you locked down the injustice." I smiled and said, "Sometimes you just have to lock it down to open the door to fairness." Looking back, this story isn't just about a pool or a tyrannical HOA Karen, it's a lesson. A lesson in standing up for your rights calmly, smartly, and creatively. When the odds feel stacked and the critics relentless, remember, strategy beats anger, evidence beats emotion, community beats isolation. So, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have locked that gate? Comment below with "Justice served" if you made it to the end. I want to hear your stories. And if someone ever tries to fine you for breathing, maybe consider a lock and a plan. Thanks for watching. Stay smart, stay calm, and keep fighting the good fight.